Hello there, my name is Dan, and over the last few years I've been working on a partial self-sufficiency project here in Essex, UK. And the main purpose of my channel is to show you how to grow your own fruit and vegetables, no matter what size garden, allotment or growing space you do indeed have, or the amount of time you have available to put into your gardening. So, if you like my work, please feel free to like and share, and if you'd like to be notified of any further videos I put up, please feel free to subscribe and click the bell icon. The temperature has dropped. We've had a few frosts now. It went down to about -2 degrees C the other night, which is around 28 degrees Fahrenheit. However, there are still some seeds that you can sow at this time of year. So I'm going to make a video on what you can sow during the month of December. We will start with Landcrest. Now this is one of my favourites. I like it in sandwiches. It tastes very similar to watercress, and the way I would germinate this would be in a greenhouse or a polytunnel. If you don't have one of those, a cold frame or a mini greenhouse would be good, and if you don't have one of those, you can germinate them on a windowsill, ideally south facing for the extra warmth. If germinating them outside, a saucer such as this would be good. Landcrest does not need to put down deep roots. So what you can do is put a layer of multi-purpose compost in here. You would then put your seeds on and then another layer of multi-purpose compost on top. You could also grow them in a container such as this, and this would also be good if you were growing them on a windowsill. So you'd put a saucer underneath and just put it on your windowsill, and they should germinate within a few weeks. Herbs: oregano, basil and parsley. So I would grow these in pots such as this, and I would have them on a windowsill, and once again multi-purpose compost and then your seed, put it on your windowsill, and before long you should have some lovely herbs to use in your cooking. Broad beans. So I have three varieties here. I have Aqua Dulce Claudia, I have Express, and I also have the Sutton. So Aqua Dulce Claudia is generally the variety recommended for overwintering. So I'm going to be sowing all three of these varieties. Now, this variety here, the Sutton, is a dwarf variety. So if you're living in an exposed location, if they're planted in an exposed location, lots of wind, rain, etc., this could be the one for you because they're a dwarf plant and so therefore less likely to break. This variety here, Express. Now this is the fastest broad bean, or so it says, so that one could be interesting. Now how would I sow broad beans? You can straight sow these into the ground at this time of year, and what they'll do is get about that sort of size, and then when the weather warms up in the spring they'll proceed to grow. Now the way I like to germinate broad beans is undercover, greenhouse, polytunnel or cold frame in a pot such as this with multi-purpose compost. So you put your compost in, plant your seeds, and the reason why I like to have them in trays such as this is because if you plant them outside, sometimes mice, birds, etc. can peck them off and therefore you lose your crop. Whereas if you grow them like this first, ready for later transplanting, you increase your chances of getting a reliable crop because they're less likely to get damaged. So that's a good plan and a good tip for you. A few years ago I grew a broad bean plant in a pot about this size, so 25 to 30 litres. I placed the pot up against a south facing wall so the microclimate was very warm, and the following spring the plant proceeded to grow very well and made a good size, and the yield was rather huge. So broad beans can be grown in pots and will benefit from a nice warm microclimate as well. Lettuce, winter gem. So the way I would germinate these would be in a tray such as this, a cell tray. This is the bottom of a windowsill propagator, multi-purpose compost, then your seeds, then another layer of multi-purpose compost on top, and then put that on a windowsill inside for the microclimate. Now this variety will germinate outside under cover, so once again greenhouse, polytunnel or cold frame, but it will be a little bit slower if you do it that way. So I would advise the microclimate method, so variety winter gem. Chilies. Now the way I would germinate these would be on a windowsill, and what I would do is place the seeds with multi-purpose compost in a pot about this size. Once again make sure there's something underneath it, and then put it on the windowsill. So some of you may remember the Onavec hot peppers chilies that I grew this year. Well, I actually sowed them about this time last year, and you may remember the high yields. So the varieties I'm growing this year are Onavec once again, and another variety called Basque. Not 100% sure how you pronounce it, but they will do well on your windowsill, and then you can bring them out when the risk of frost has passed, or a little bit earlier into a greenhouse polytunnel or cold frame next year. Salad leaves. This is variety Speedy Mix. Now this is a great one for people to grow who don't have a garden and want their own windowsill garden. So the way I would grow these would be in a container such as this. Once again, multi-purpose compost, then the seeds, saucer underneath, put it on a south-facing windowsill ideally. If you don't have south-facing, put it in the best sunny one you've got, and you should have some lovely salad leaves to eat, either in a salad or in your sandwiches. Corn salad, otherwise known as lamb's lettuce. Now the way I would germinate these would be in a cell tray such as these on a windowsill, and then slowly harden them off, and then later on transplant them either into the open ground or into the ground in a greenhouse or a polytunnel. Now I could sow these into a cell tray such as this and germinate them in the polytunnel here, but germination will be slower than if I germinate them inside, harden them off and then bring them out. But if you want to germinate these outside, you can do so under cover. I've moved these geraniums into here. Geraniums, non-hardy geraniums, zonal pelargoniums, and you can see them like this. So they're doing well and they are still flowering. Now you can actually sow the seeds to these this time of year, and that can be very beneficial because they're more likely to be in flower in the late spring into the summer if you sow the seeds now, as opposed to if you wait until spring, because they may not be ready to flower in the summer if you sow them then. So you can actually get some nice varieties of geranium seeds. Have a look around and grow the colours you wish. So this is variety Moulin Rouge. Another variety I've had good success with before is Horizon White. And the way I would germinate geranium seeds would be using the microclimate method in the cell trays on a warm windowsill. It's very effective if you use the windowsill microclimate method, very good, because you can generally get quicker and more reliable germination rates. And what you can do, if the plants you're growing are hardy, you get them to a size and then you bring them outside maybe during the day, and then what you do is bring them in overnight to slowly harden them off. I wouldn't recommend you putting them straight outside, because that way you could shock them if they're not used to it. So get used to doing that, and as I stated before, if you don't have a garden, you can have your own miniature garden on windowsills in your house, flat, apartment or whatever. You can see in the polytunnel here I have some spinach and some kale, and I also have some salads growing in the ground in the polytunnel. And when your plants get to a nice size and you've hardened them off, you can put them out under cover such as this for some nice food to eat. This one is very much for the enthusiast. So what I have done before around this time of year is sowed plants such as kale, spinach and chard using the windowsill microclimate method, and then as they grow move them into different pots, and then into the following year around February, March time transplant them out under cover outside, and that way you can get them in the ground earlier than if you would had you sowed them in the spring, and get some earlier pickings of that particular plant. So that's one, if you really want to go into utilising microclimates etc., could be one that you wish to have a go at. When growing on windowsills, the general advice is to not put the plants in between the curtain and the window because of the cold air in there. So what can be a good option is if you have a piece of cloudy glass where there is not a curtain present, then use that windowsill. But if you only have one behind a curtain, then that's how it is. So quite important, if you can, to use a south-facing windowsill, because generally more heat will come in from there. There you go. So there's some seeds for you to sow during the month of December. If you like my work, please feel free to like, share and subscribe. And you can always check me out on Dan_Home Gardens on Instagram if indeed you're interested. Thank you very much for viewing, and I'll see you next time.